Today on the show, we have Gail Spreen from Streeterville Properties at Jameson, Sotheby's. By the way, Gail is an absolute legend here in the Chicago real estate professional industry. But for all of our listeners that aren't yet familiar with Gail, let me tell you a little bit about her. Gail has been a real estate broker since 1994 and has focused her career entirely on the Chicago market, working with large developers within the city, also specializing in the Streeterville neighborhood and downtown core. Gail represents a true real estate professional with disciplines and market knowledge to assist her clients in all aspects of their home buying and selling experience. Gail is proud to call Streeterville her home and is also extremely, and this is an understatement, extremely active in both the residential and business communities. As a 5-time president of SOAR, which is the Streeterville Organization of Active Residents, Gail is continually working to keep Streeterville a neighborhood. She works within the city departments and developers to make improvements to their projects that will enhance and improve the neighborhood and create value for the entire area. And for those of you who are not as familiar with Chicago, if you've ever visited Chicago, you've been to Streeterville, which is where the Magnificent Mile is, Michigan Avenue, all of the great shopping right on the water, and is probably my favorite area of the city too. We want to, and by the way, and you should visit Gail on her website at streetervilleproperties.com. Gail, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you, DJ. It's great to be here.
Yeah, you and I met not that long ago at a top producer event that you were on the panel for, and I was fortunate enough to be able to moderate. And I thought you had such great information to share to all of the realtors who were there, that we were thankful that you were able to come on our show and do the same for all of our nationwide listeners. So we appreciate it. Tell us a little bit, since you've been in real estate since 1994. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the business and how things have changed over the years.
Well, they definitely have changed a lot. I actually got my sales license in 1991, and
wow.
I know that was back when you had to work for a broker at
Sure.
that time, and then I got my broker's license in 94. But back when I got my sales license, I was like, I don't know what value is. How can I actually tell somebody this is really worth this much? So I went and I worked at an appraisal company at night and just typed appraisals so that I could learn what the appraisers were talking about, how they valued property. And then they started having me help them. And I was doing this kind of in the evenings and on weekends, as I worked at Draper and Kramer during the day in their mortgage department.
Yeah.
So I became an appraiser, and which gave me, and I did that for 15 years, just Chicago, downtown condos. When other appraisers didn't want to come downtown and have to deal with condo buildings, I'm like, I'll do the report. So I did thousands of appraisals during those years. And you really learn something about all the buildings, about value. And so I think it was really helpful in my whole career in real estate, is to really understand what the appraiser goes through and how to value a property, and then to incorporate that into my real estate selling. So there's been a number of stages through this, but it's all kind of, brings everything together. And
well, it's so funny. I don't mean to interrupt. I did want to make a big point, because Gail just said a really important thing, talking about understanding the value of properties through her experience doing lots of appraisals over the years, and also starting out sort of interning and working to learn that, and realizing not just as a potential another stream of income, but how she can bring that value back to her real estate clients, and how 99% of realtors don't have that experience, and it really separates you from everyone else. What a really smart idea. I imagine that makes you very valuable to your clients.
well, I think it helps, and it makes me more confident when I'm talking to people about where to price their property, where to put an offer in, where the value really is. I can say, hey, I've been an appraiser for 15 years, and this is how this kind of works. When I have to meet with other appraisers, it's helpful too, because I know exactly what they're needing to get the report done. And if the data is not there, how do you work within that and come up with a value? I had to do that the other night with an appraiser who was struggling. So I kind of gave him some direction, and hopefully we'll get the deal done nice and clean.
Wow. Well, that's wonderful, and I've always been impressed with realtors who go and really either get those certifications or even really just study and learn, to bring additional value. I think is so important, especially now when so much of it can be automated, right? A lot of like the Redfins and Zillows of the world have taken some of the hard work away from the realtor of locating properties. But now you can come and say, well, let's talk about value. And here's where I have 15 years of experience. And here's where I think the actual price point should be. And that's super powerful. I love it.
Yep.
I would love to talk to you because I know being a local present person in your community has been you've branded it as your business. You are in the community, you're active, you have leadership roles. And for a lot of our listeners who, haven't yet decided to really get involved with whatever area they're passionate about or where they want to focus their business. Can you talk a little bit about how that's, just how important that is to you and ultimately has that helped your business?
I think it's helped my business a lot because especially now people are looking for expertise. So being able to really know your product, know your neighborhood, know everything about your neighborhood is really a much more of a value to bring to the table when you're working with a buyer or a seller. I feel like I can sell Streeterville probably better than anybody because I have a passion for it. And it usually comes through in the way that I talk about the neighborhood, where I have a long-term vision for the neighborhood and how it continually will get better and better. So I came to Streeterville in the beginning of 1997 and worked for Dan McLean of MCL on the development in South Streeterville. Back at that time, there was hardly anything here. And so seeing the neighborhood get built up, the neighborhood's just getting better. We could not even get a restaurant barely here in South Streeterville because there wasn't enough density. So now to see all the restaurant options we have, it's hard to support them all because you want to support them all, but then you're out eating all the time. But so it's really been a great part of my market from being an expert to knowing a lot of the people in the neighborhood. So having been here so long and worked with people who are selling or buying, I always feel as a buyer, they become my neighbor. So I want everybody to be happy in our transactions. I want the seller happy because with my economic development hat on and my appraiser hat, I want to create value in everything that we're doing. So I want them to get their best, the best price. But on the buyer side, I want the buyers happy as well because they're going to be my new neighbor. And because I also feel that reputation is everything, especially in a niche market. I will go above and beyond for everybody, for everything, because I want everybody happy. And I always believe if, that'll pay off in the long run to keep everyone happy. So it's been a big part of my market from doing all the different community work that I do for all of these 20 some years. So, and it's been really fun. I love it. So it's all been good.
Yeah, I was curious because obviously, you work with clients, throughout Chicago, not specifically only in the Streeterville neighborhood, but that's your primary focus. What percentage of your business is actually in Streeterville?
I would say probably about 90% is like,
Wow.
I do some River North, I do some Lakeshore East, a little South Loop, and I really don't necessarily want to go north of North Avenue. So,
I don't blame you.
I mean, I can be super efficient. Sometimes when I just stay very local, sometimes when people see me west of Michigan Avenue, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're out of your territory." But so most of my business is like right here in Streeterville, which is great because again, everything's super efficient then, and I can do a lot more in a smaller area because being able to keep everybody happy, having great partners within the industry, from your painters to your cleaners. We get a lot done with we can just coordinate a lot very easily because we're very local and very, in a small area.
So when in those those small percentage clients that maybe are moving to the suburbs, let's say, is it your policy to, obviously you could always help them if you desire, but do you end up referring a lot of business to other realtors as well?
I do. So I don't want to do anything that's not my expertise. So anything in the suburbs, somebody else can do it, and I'm happy to do referrals, as well as I've got people in the suburbs who don't want to,
Sure.
that don't know downtown, and they don't want to try, they really want their clients to be taken care of. So I will do a number of split deals with them as I take care of their clients for them. So it's a good mutual setup that I have with different brokers in different areas.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and I think it's a lot of times brokers, when they get their license, they join a firm, they certainly hear at some point, choose an area, geographic location, get involved in the community, start studying the MLS, go visit all the buildings, and within a couple of years, you're going to be really knowledgeable, of course, about that area. I just suspect most brokers maybe don't take the time to actually do that. Life gets, in the way. I had on Matt Laracy from maybe a month ago, and he did the same thing in River North. When he moved to River North, he didn't know anything about it, and he spent the first 5 years literally walking from building to building going, are you an apartment building? Are you a condo? How does this work? And he said after 5 years, he's like, nobody knows River North better than him, and you obviously have the same expertise in Streeterville, and that makes you so valuable to everyone who wants to move or move within Streeterville or move to. Is that advice that you have for anyone who's looking to grow their business, is pick an area and get involved and learn it?
I would recommend that. I think that's the best way to really get going, to work with other brokers to do open houses, other brokers that are working in that area to do that, because I still do, after all these years, I still do open houses on the weekends. And I'm in front of people all the time. I enjoy it because I'm meeting more neighbors that I might not know. People see you're busy, so activity breeds activity. So they think you're busy doing things. So it's just a great way to meet more people and to get more leads if that is your goal. My goal is usually to sell things. So, but I love meeting people in the neighborhood and people that want to come into the neighborhood or who are just checking out different areas and really don't know Streeterville. So I could go on and on about Streeterville. So at some point I have to, give them my overall kind of, talk about it just to make them, I also believe in no surprises. So when somebody wants to, they're looking, picking between River North, Streeterville, Lakeshore East, South Loop, Old Town, just being very upfront with them. These are a lot of the positive and negatives you're going to see about the different neighborhoods, and then having letting them decide and pick what fits their lifestyle the best and what they're looking for. I never really want someone to go, and to pick a neighborhood and then be like, wow, I didn't really think about that. I want people to really be happy with their decision, whether it's Streeterville, whatever neighborhood, I don't care. I just want them happy. So no surprises.
Yeah, and I think that's a great customer service policy. No surprises. And I think now, since most of us are working from home, most of the country, whether we like it or not, we're stuck at home. I snuck into the office, but we barricade the doors so no one else can get in. But most of us are at home, and especially for the listeners who are real estate professionals, which is 99% of our listeners, now is a great time to get familiar with the inventory in your area. For example, here in Chicago, especially where Gail is, and in the city area around Streeterville, is a lot of high-rise apartment buildings. And now's the time to do the virtual tours, go to each one of their websites, and get familiar if you're somebody that's into rentals. But a lot of condo buildings have that as well. But now's the time to really, we have extra time these days, and so now's the time to really get your knowledge down for your area, you know, study the MLS, know what the average price point is for a 1-bedroom or a single family home or an apartment, and, you know, all the different options. Like, you can really use this time to get more knowledgeable. And as Gail said, think of how valuable, you know, someone is who wants to move to Streeterville. Gail is the best resource. Obviously she has lots and lots of years of experience, but Gail did a lot of studying outside of her, you know, working with clients to make sure that she could bring that knowledge to her clients. So great advice, Gail. That's really awesome. Also, you know what I would like to mention for all of our Chicago listeners is your husband is he a sculptor? Is that his profession?
He is. He's a professional artist. And
Wow.
one of the fun things that has happened through the years is a number of years ago, Golovin Company commissioned him to do a bronze sculpture of Cap Streeter, who is 8-foot bronze at the corner of McClurg and Grand in front of the Yoke restaurant. So, so we have that, and they do beautiful landscaping around Cap. And so it's Cap and his dog Spot. I've got a little statue of Cap Streeter right here, who's my my backup all the time. And but it's kind of made us the historians of Streeterville as well,
Wow.
which is great because I love talking about history and Cap Streeter, which he was such a colorful character, and to think he lived right here, and just the whole development of how this neighborhood became what it is. It is kind of, I call it an irrational passion that I have because I don't understand why I'm so attracted to it, but I love the history of the neighborhood. And so with that, we are actually working right now on a documentary on the development of South Streeterville.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's really, we hope to have it done this year, but we hired a professional video company who interviewed all the developers that have been part of how this South Streeterville area became what it is today. From Dirk Lowen, who is Mies van der Rohe's grandson, who did the water cannon that shoots over the river,
Oh, wow.
to Charlie Gardner, who was head of Chicago Dock and Canal, to Alderman Hopkins, who was a great activist with me in Streeterville through the many years and now an alderman. We've got about 12 different people we've interviewed. So now we're putting all that together to tell the story of how Streeterville became what it is today. So that's really fun to work on. And the History Museum is going to be the repository, and we'll keep it. And it's much more of a kind of an urban planning film than really like some marketing film. But it all started because I had a buyer who said, how come this area is only getting developed now? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have got to tell the story of how it was the busiest shipping port in the whole world, and now to see what it's become today. So I think, that was kind of my impetus to being like, let's get this done, and let's do it from the mouths of the guys who actually did the development instead of somebody else just telling the story. So that was, we're excited about getting it done and letting people see it. So kind of fun.
Wow. Well, it's funny. We think a lot about how to grow our business, and I always think you should pick something that that you're super passionate about, that you have an interest in, and just dive headfirst into it with respect to community. Like, find something about your local community that you are passionate, whether it's a charitable organization or just being involved in the Chamber of Commerce or local politics or whatever. Get involved, and not only will there's a good chance that you'll become more present in the community, maybe even get more clients as a result, which is not the reason to do it, of course, but a nice benefit. But also you'll just have a tremendous sense of pride. And as Gail, you were saying, it's fun. I feel that way about a few organizations of my own. And it's fun to be able to affect change. Like, you're in leadership positions within the neighborhood. So that must be really exciting to be able to dictate, sort of, in some ways, to have input on what happens.
Absolutely. And just to know that the neighborhood has become what it is, and a lot because of your input and our work through all these years, from development issues that we've identified, different aspects of a development proposal that we can say this isn't going to work because we know how the streets work here, from doing that to doing Streeterville cleanups, to park cleanups, to you name it. we are working on things that, just all try to make the neighborhood a better neighborhood. So it's fun. And that's something that I've always encouraged other brokers to do. Get involved in your community, and otherwise get involved in something. Maybe it's some organization, maybe it's Paws because you have a dog, maybe it's the diabetes, association. I don't know, but there's a gazillion different ways that people can, organizations that really are looking for people to be involved. But pick something you're passionate about, and then, like you say, dive in, get involved, and really try to not so much get business out of it, that will come, but get involved and try to help them. And when you help them, it should, come back as a benefit to you, but that should not be the goal.
You're right. And it's funny. I think what a lot of people forget is that a lot of organizations, whether they're charitable or part of your local community, government, they are looking for people to do work. There's never a shortage of good ideas, but the people to actually execute those ideas are in short supply. So, if you're not currently participating in your community or in organizations where you can actually be of value, not only will you be helping that organization, but also you're going to have a tremendous sense of community and pride just doing that. And then ultimately, hopefully, it makes you more present in the community and more people know about you. And of course that could lead to more business. But even if it doesn't lead to any business, you'll just have a tremendous sense of fulfillment, I think. But there's never, we always say this, 'cause I work with a few different organizations, and we never have a problem coming up with ideas. It's always who's going to actually execute these ideas. So if you're somebody that likes to do work and be able to, get involved all the organizations I'm a part of, we'd love to have anybody that's willing to do that. Yeah. So, but you've been a shining example of somebody who has done that work time and time again in many, many organizations.
Well, people do say I have a problem with not being able to say no.
Yeah, that's because they know. That's because they know you're a worker. They know if they get you on board, it's going to get done. So you're very important. Let's talk more about real estate. So right now, of course, everything is changing or has changed, at least from our abilities to kind of come and go. Although you were just at an inspection just moments before joining us. Have you seen any changes in the last month or so, or is it business as usual right now?
Oh, there's definitely changes, because in the high-rise buildings that I work in, we can't get into them. There's no showings allowed. And so that has been a challenge. So we've done a lot of virtual tours. Sure. Which, what is fascinating just in the last month is we've got all your beautiful professional photography done, right? It's all online. And people will be like, hey, can you send me a virtual tour? And you're like, well, it's all online. You've got the best pictures. And they're like, oh, but I want to see a walkthrough. So It doesn't matter if it's not even a real professional one, but they want to see a walkthrough and they want to see a video done. So I have spent quite a bit of time, and it's one of my team's kind of mission right now is making sure we have video of all our listings, and doing them in shorter clips so we can get them sent out. But having this video, I had one person, it was a little tiny studio. They're like, oh, can you send me a video? I'm like, there's 3 rooms. There's a living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom, and I've got great photos of them. Oh, but we want to see a video. So I'm like, wow, we really need video. So I actually went and I did, 4 videos today that we'll be using. I have the inspection I just finished. I actually, from doing a video, I just sold a condo to some people from California, and I have that inspection yet this afternoon. FaceTimed them, and with this video, and they bought this condo. We were able to put a deal together. So I think some of the things that are really going to be changing in the way we do business is these videos, and people really wanting that, whether it is the most professional one or they actually appreciate just having a more amateur one done. and, and enjoying that. But that's interesting, as well as doing all the Zoom and all the meetings online, which is kind of fascinating. That we'll see how that changes some of all the meetings that we normally would be attending, and how we kind of, change that structure versus sitting across the table from someone discussing issues versus having everyone on a screen together. So definitely changes.
Yeah, a lot you just said there. But you're right. Yeah, things are changing, but this is still very much I guess we shouldn't say face-to-face business, but because it could be screen to screen, but looking at someone and having them look back, whether it's by saying, hey, let me FaceTime you and walk you through the apartment because we don't have, a traditional virtual tour, but I can do that for you. Or you could just go in and take that video. And the cool part is that I think most people don't expect professional quality videos because we're all used to watching YouTube and now TikTok and all of the other sites that promote streaming video that anybody can do just with a phone camera. Is we're sort of used to just seeing people produce their own stuff. And so not that if you can, obviously having, the really cool virtual tours like Matterport and the different options there are always awesome. But at least something. I know my girlfriend works at Catalyst, which is a high rise in the West Loop. And they're of course, they same as with a lot of the buildings, whether they're apartment or condo, no one's getting in. My building, no one can come in. Even my cleaning lady, of course, nobody can come in. So other than residents. And so these virtual tours, as Gail's saying, is so important. And I suspect that a lot of our listeners, might be thinking, well, what if I just take my phone and use it? It's like, well, that's better than nothing. And have something at least until maybe if you want a more professional crew to come out, whenever they're able to be allowed back into these buildings, who knows, but do something. And you just sold a home. It sounded like, I know you didn't exactly say this, but to the couple from California, is that sight unseen just from the...
Yes, it was just from doing a
Amazing.
FaceTime. And then first I did the video, sent that to them, and then they said, let's do a FaceTime. And what's nice about doing the FaceTime with them is if you're going through the kitchen, they can be like, hey, show me like
Yeah.
the dishwasher bed or the refrigerator bed, or take me back to this area. So it kind of, there's that interaction is nice. And then you're being able to really focus on what they care about the most. So
Yeah, that's really, really smart. So for everyone listening, if you're allowed to go into the property and your clients aren't, you can do these, via Zoom, FaceTime. There's a million ways to do it. And then you're able to, almost do what the person would have done in person, which is ask about various, parts of the place. And yeah, really smart. That's awesome. So that's really encouraging for everyone stuck at home thinking, how can I still close deals? The answer is yes. Or at the very least, I've always said, like, to all the brokers at our firm as well, is like, now's the time also, if you don't have clients, to deepen those relationships and to reach out and let all of your sphere of influence and your contact list, obviously friends and family, but let everybody know you're thinking about them and check in on them and see how they're doing. Because probably a lot of us are sitting at home. Some of us have more to do than others, but it's a lonely world. So anything you can do to connect right now is probably a good idea.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, and Gail, you are so well known in Chicago, and a lot of brokers and realtors have come to you over the years asking for advice. We talked about getting hyper local, getting involved in the community. In open houses, this was another thing we mentioned, how important it is to do open houses. And do you recommend to newer brokers, maybe who don't have listings, to talk to other realtors in their office and ask if they can help with open houses?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity for people to be able to get in front of residents, whether they're actually sellers or buyers. They're
Yeah.
residents that are coming and going through the building. I always wear a name tag, which I have one on because
Yeah.
I always wear one, because we're in elevators all the time. People know me, but sometimes, it just is that some people are more visual and they remember you by your name that way. Other people are more oral. So I think, there's just all different ways to make sure that you're always in front of them and you're meeting more people. So I would highly recommend that to young agents, to to be out there. You know, there was a lady back when I started all my community work, and she was like super well known for the Magnificent Mile Association, and she was like the queen of Oak Street and Michigan Avenue retail leasing. Everybody totally respected her, and her name is Jackie Hayes. And I said, what Jackie is to retail on Michigan Avenue and Oak Street, I want to be to Streeterville. And Jackie said, you've got to be out there all the time. You've got to be at everything. You've got to be the face of it. And so I always took her advice. To this day, I'm still out there all the time, at meetings. I'm, obviously involved in everything and still doing the open houses, but you have to be there. And so I just recommend to people, don't sit home. When we can get out and get busy again, get out there and have, know your business, study, like you had said, DJ, study your buildings, know what your product is that you're trying to sell or to rent. You've got to be able to say, if someone tells me, oh, I live at 600 Lakeshore Drive and I'm in this unit, I know exactly what their view is. I know their floor plan. And if they're looking for a property that is similar to that, but maybe larger, but they want the same view, I can tell them exactly what buildings will have it because I know all the floor plans and in the neighborhood. Or if I say, gee, if some buyer comes to and says, oh, I've been looking at different properties, and I'll ask them, what have you been looking at and what did you like about it or not like? And if they tell me what units they've seen, I know exactly what they've seen, and I can sell off of that because now I know what they've looked at. I know what other properties are that are in the area, and I know what properties and what units would best fit them. So it really, by taking this time to study your market, study your product, is just key. I think there's so many things that can be done right now. People should not be bored. There's so much to do.
Yes.
So they should really take advantage of this time. It's actually a very special time to be able to do that and to be able to see your family a little bit more, but also, really learn your market.
Yeah, I know at our business, all of it, we're in management. There's 9 of us here. And we all said, okay, we're going to, since we have a little bit extra time than we normally wouldn't have had, along with a lot of people, of course, we said, we're all going to learn, go through a certification. So I'm doing a marketing thing and other people are doing other things. And so, which was really smart for my boss to recommend that. And so, yes, now is the time to beef up those skills or to just say, I've been talking about getting involved for years. Now is the time to do some research to figure out what organizations I may want to support and lend my talents to. So, yes, let's study the market. Let's become an expert because experts are very valuable. And, over time, maybe right now you're doing transactions all over your area because you're new and you're trying to just keep growing. But always have that true north. So Gail's true north is very obvious because it's her whole life is Streeterville, which is an awesome thing for her, and she loves it, and that's just works perfectly. So you want to be that person to whatever local area you are in, but you have to know, as Gail said, you have to know the inventory. You have to be valuable in that way. So now's the time to figure that out. And the good news is it's not you have to study hours and hours a night. If you just study for 1 hour a day, you'll find within a couple of months you're going to know a lot more, and you're going to know the inventory. And then when someone asks, hey, I'm moving to, XYZ area, you're going to say, okay, well, here's what's available. And that just separates you from the vast majority of brokers. So Gail, I wanted to ask you, since you've been in business for so long, you've seen so many agents succeed. Obviously, you've seen others that haven't succeeded. What do you think separates? We've talked a lot about what you've done to become successful. But are there any other suggestions you have as far as, well, this really seems to work? We talked about open houses, becoming an expert, getting involved. Are there any other suggestions that you can think of for agents who are, want to learn how to just, grow their business?
Well, I would say even back when I was starting, I was sitting there doing postcards
Yeah,
to, to my building or to neighboring buildings. And I just did it manually and got them out, wrote notes to people, really stayed connected with people that way. And so I think you have to kind of know your target market as well. So in Streeterville, if some of the people in certain buildings may be a little bit older than younger, then they still appreciate direct mail and they
sure.
will still read it. Where then in some other neighborhoods or some other buildings, they might be a different, like age group, and they might be much more on the social media and, just a little bit, your messaging would be just a little bit different. So kind of, definitely be constantly reaching out and doing your marketing. Don't just wait for everything to come to you, but do push out information as well. So, working on, doing postcards, but, and doing your messaging, whether it is on social media or however you can get into the buildings that way. It might be in their newsletters. If you're offering to pay some money to be in their newsletter for marketing, those associations would love it, and then you're right in front of the whole building, whether it's online or it's in a hard copy that they're getting to all their residents. So there's a number of different ways you can, that you can take advantage of that angle as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I met a realtor once who lived in I forget where, somewhere. I was a listener of our show. I think it was in Kentucky, somewhere in rural Kentucky. And he was telling me that what he does, it's actually not so rural where he is, but he works just in neighbor. Everything to me and it seems rural because you and I live in some of the busiest areas of the world. But he, more of a suburban area of somewhere in Kentucky. Anyway, what he would do when he sold a home is he would write a personal note to every neighbor within a certain number of blocks, or however he figured, however much he was able to do this. But he would say, hey, just to let you know, I'm so and so, and I just recently helped your neighbors sell their home, if you're ever interested. And he said that was the smartest thing he ever did, and he does it to this day. He writes, he says sometimes he has to write 50 of them, and it takes a while to do it. It takes a couple of days, but he goes, every time I do that, at least 2 or 3 people call me, which is a remarkable return on investment. But it's basically what you were just saying as well, is whatever your marketing strategy is, you have to send those messaging out on a consistent basis. And yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I also want to talk about, Gail, and I want to know, a little bit more about, what you do for your clients. Cause we don't just have our listeners are not just realtors, but sometimes are buyers, sellers, investors. I know you've done a lot with developers, in addition to buyers and sellers and renters as well. You talk a little bit about what you do for your clients?
We try to be as much full service as we possibly can. So we will, whether it's getting the place cleaned, whether it's bringing in a designer to help lay out the furniture, if we're trying to, put it on the market and really have everything laid out, so it will show the best. To, to it's really just anything needed. We want to be the resource that they will come to. So, I am constantly asked for the most unusual things. People will, I'll have them texting me, where do I get Thai food? And then I'll send them a note back. Where do I get this? Where do I get that? So you really become this resource for anything Streeterville from them. But on the client side, we are really trying to make everything as seamless as possible for them, so that we're bringing in the stagers, we're bringing in the cleaners, we bring in the photographers, we have the brochures. When it gets to the point that you're getting a deal done, make it so easy for them, give them great direction all the way through. A lot of my clients, are very sophisticated people. However, they haven't done that many real estate transactions.
Right.
So to never assume anything, that they understand all the steps to it, to the whole transaction. So really working with them on every little step along the way to actually one of my clients right now, just the fact that I was an appraiser and I'm able to help this appraiser keep our deal together. He's just so thankful. When I sent him my explanation of what I sent to the appraiser, my seller came back and is just like so thankful that I'm able to help the appraiser for this deal get the deal done. So there's a lot of different ways that I'm able to help. And it goes right down to doing the final walkthrough, making sure that the place is clean when you're bringing the buyer in, as they're going to pay $500,000 for a condo, and now the condo's vacant and doesn't have all the beautiful furniture anymore. I want that buyer happy so that they walk in and at least, even if it's vacant, it's clean and fresh, and and they're happy going to, as they go off to the closing. So every little step along the way to make it the best experience possible is what my goal is, right? All the way through.
Yeah, and you clearly do that. I wanted to just circle back to one thing that I think has become more popular in recent years, which is staging. I suspect this has to do a lot with us being able to see via social media, Instagram in particular, how everything looks perfect and shiny. And I think people are now expecting that. How often are you working with, when you have a listing with stagers? Is it majority of the time? Is it only occasionally? I'm just curious how frequent that is for you.
I would say it's not a majority of the time, because a lot of times they have a lot of beautiful furniture in there already. So they will wait to move their furniture until we get it sold. However, depending on what their furniture is, I might make recommendations for certain pieces. Like, we need to remove about half the pieces, and then maybe have a stager come and add a few pieces that will, enhance the flow, enhance the look of the whole place. So I would say it's not all the time, but every opportunity I can, I'm trying to bring a stager in, because I think the value of them is enormous. And I don't think sellers sometimes can really appreciate how valuable those stagers are. But when you go online on the MLS and you're looking at photos where they might have virtually staged it, and then they show the empty room, there's no comparison to those two rooms with furniture in it versus a vacant. And it's definitely worth the money that they that they have to spend. And so I highly recommend it.
Yeah, thanks for that. Also, for anyone who is listening, who is thinking about, working with a Chicago real estate expert, in particular in the downtown area, Gail, what's the best way that one of our listeners who might be looking for a new realtor should reach out to you?
Well, my email is Gail, Gail, at streetervilleproperties.com. So that is one of the easiest ways to get me, or my phone number, which is my cell that I give out freely to everybody and post it anywhere. 312-925-7668 is also a great way to get me.
Well, Gail, I think we've really said it all today. We talked a lot about the importance of getting involved, getting local, getting knowledge about your area as well, and how that has served you in particular, and how you have served it for well over, 20 plus years. It's incredible. And of course, you have status in Chicago as one of the top brokers here in the entire Chicagoland area. So I think so much of the value you gave was just telling people this is how I built my business. So we really appreciate your time, and I know you're super busy as well, even through the stay-at-home era. But on behalf of the listeners, we want to thank Gail for her time and sharing all this great wisdom. And on behalf of Gail and myself to the listeners, we also say thanks. Want to remind everyone that if everyone could just tell one friend about our show, think of another real estate professional that could benefit from hearing from Gail or any of the other guests we've had, just shoot them over to our website, which is keepingitrealpod.com, or any podcast app, just search for Keeping It Real. You'll find us right away. That would really help our show grow. Also, please follow us on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/Keeping It Real Pod. Not only to be able to watch the behind the scenes recordings of these videos, or rather of these episodes, you get to see the videos, but also we post every single day an article that we find online that was written specifically to help realtors grow their business. So we try to provide a tremendous amount of value there as well. So follow us again on Facebook and tell a friend. Anyway, Gail, thank you again. You were a wonderful guest. We're so excited to continue to see Streeterville prosper under your leadership. And thanks for being a part of the show.
Oh, thank you. And if you wouldn't mind, I have one last plug.
Please.
I'm chair of the Lights Festival for the Michigan Avenue Lights Festival Parade. And that happens the Saturday before Thanksgiving every year. So I was chair last year. I'm chair again this year. So if anybody wants to get involved, you could be a balloon handler, a parade marshal. I would love to have you. So just let me know. We'd love to have you join us. I know it's not till November. However, we start early.
Well, and I will also, yes. So everyone, I will put a link to that in the episode notes as well. And also my favorite church, well, I'm not really that into churches, but my favorite church is in Streeterville, which is Fourth Presbyterian, which of course is everybody's favorite church because of how cool and perfectly situated and beautiful it is. But they do some cool things over the holiday as well. I imagine they're probably part of the lights, I'm guessing.
Right, absolutely. So
yeah.
Thank you again, DJ. It was great to be on.
Thanks, Gail. All right, we'll see everyone on our next episode.
Okay, take care.
Thanks.